program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It is a scorching day in the African bush, and over here we have some zebra taking shelter in the shade. This is Safari Live.
You are live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Safari Live on our Sunset Safari. My name's Byron, and on camera this afternoon is Brian with the thumb, and we've got a hedgehog thumb this afternoon. Different, very different. On the other vehicle is Taylor and Dave. They're heading down to Cheetah Plains, and then in the FC we've got Kirsten. It's great to have you all with us, and welcome again. As I said, it is a scorching day today. It is about 37 degrees Celsius, or about 98 degrees Fahrenheit, so very, very hot. And we've just got some zebra and impala that have moved into the shade off to my left. You can see these animals are all affected by the heat, and they are very, very clever, and they adapt well to these conditions. They'll move into the shade and spend most of the time during the day walking around, feeding, and then later on probably heading towards some water and getting a drink. These impala are beautiful, wonderful antelope. So this afternoon, we are actually in search for some lions. We managed to get a glimpse of some lions this morning. We had 2 females and a male from the Umkuhuma Pride. It was wonderful to see them, and you can see clear blue skies. Really a wonderful day here today. So we're in search of lions. It's very hot, so I'm hoping they haven't moved too far. Possibly in around these drainage lines that we're going to drive through now, and I'm going to search very carefully. And while I do that, let's go over to Taylor so she can say afternoon to you.
Welcome to a sweltering afternoon here in the African wilderness. Look at these beautiful elephants that we have found. Now, it's just a small group of them. There seem to just be 3 over here. You can have a look at that tiny little one, and even the adult female is exhausted from this heat. She's drinking water very, very slowly, as you can see, not really rushing her time, trying to spend as much time at this watering hole as she can. There she goes. She tilts her head back and has a little drink. Now, hello again, of course. My name is Taylor, in case you've just joined us for the first time, and on camera with me, we've got David. There he is. And we are so lucky to be able to sit and watch this incredible, beautiful beast of an animal just slowly try and cool herself down. Let's see if she's going to perhaps spray some water on herself. It seems as though they have already had a mud bath, and it's been hot since early this morning, since just before we ended the sunrise safari. And I reckon that the elephants probably will be having a bath at any opportunity they really can get. So lucky for them, there's all those mud wallows around, and they're able to cool themselves down quite nicely. Now remember, we are on a live safari, and I'd love to hear from you, and I'm sure Byron would love to get some questions from anyone that's watching today. So you are welcome to do so by either hashtagging Safari Live on Twitter, or alternatively you could even send us an email, questions@WildEarthTV. Now my plan this afternoon is to actually go back across to Cheetah Plains, and I'd like to try and follow up on those leopards. And hopefully, with all the water that is on Cheetah Plains, all those beautiful pans, maybe we'll see some buffalo and some more elephants in the water. I suspect a bit later we should see things like zebra and impala, wildebeest maybe even, all coming down for a little drink. Now, this pan that we're looking at the moment is a natural pan. So this is all the water that fell from the sky the other evening. And you can see it filled it up right to the top. There was a small amount of water in, but it was drying quite quickly. Now, Wyatt, you were wondering this afternoon if there were no borehole pumps and we weren't pumping water, how would some of the larger animals cope and find water? Now, elephants aren't really that badly affected because they are able to dig for their own water. So they can go to all those beautiful dry riverbeds that we often see and dig deep down into the sand, and beautiful fresh upwellings of water will come through. And also, the larger animals are very well adapted to migrating. So they would just do mini migrations and move further north or south and look for rivers that are still flowing. Now the problem comes in actually for the smaller animals, for something like a zebra, which is a water-dependent animal or a water buck. And they never really move for about 5 kilometers away from a permanent water source. Now you can imagine if all the pans in the area dried up, it would be quite difficult for something like impala and water buck and, for instance, zebra to have to migrate maybe 50 or 60 kilometers away before they could find the next water source. So it's actually the bigger animals that are a little bit more well adapted. This one going right in, not wasting any time. If I were an elephant, this is the one that I'd be too. Standing right in the middle of the pool, trying to cool myself down as much as I could. And I do apologize, my aerial is in the way. And I want to say a very special welcome to all the children at Windsor Oaks Academy. Thank you so much for joining, and we look so forward to hearing from you. So remember, you can ask us questions and we'll try and answer them to the best of our ability. So if you have any questions about these elephants, send them through. It can be anything you like and we'll try and answer them. But let's go back to the real stars of the show and see that little one standing in the shade of Mom. And of course it will be benefiting from all the water that she's now spraying over the top of herself. Little one looks like it's trying to eat. Getting a couple of splashes on its trunk. Now, I can't see from here if it's a girl or a boy. Hopefully if it moves around a little bit, then we'll be able to get a better view. It looks relatively young. It's probably less than about 6 months, or maybe almost 6 months old. Now, it is so hot here today. It is about 98 degrees Fahrenheit. I feel as though it feels even hotter than that. And tomorrow is going to be like sitting in an oven. Apparently it's going to be probably about 105, maybe even a little bit more than that degree Fahrenheit. But we will see. Hopefully we get a unsuspecting thunderstorm that comes over and rejuvenates and cools us all down. Look at this little one very carefully trying to pick at all the small leaves that are just starting to grow on that tree. No, you're using your trunk very well. Right, not hanging around though. Better get back to Mom's shade so you can stay nice and cool, little one. And of course, that elephant is not wanting to leave the water just yet. Very peaceful out here. Only a couple of robins singing in the distance. Now, Abby, you'd like to know, how do the elephants get the water in their mouth? If you watch them, look at those big trunks. They're almost like a straw. And what they'll do is that they'll suck the water up in their trunks. They can hold almost about 10 liters of water. And then they spray it back into their mouths. But now, this elephant is having a mud bath. And it's very important that the elephants cover themselves with lots of mud. And what that does is it cools them down nicely. It almost acts like a sun protection, like a sunscreen. And most importantly, is it suffocates all the little insects, so all the parasites that are trying to suck the elephant's blood. It'll basically make them stop breathing. And then the elephant will go and have a scratch on a nice tree. And hopefully those parasites, those insects that are feeding on the elephant's blood, that would have died, would have then be scraped off of the skin and onto the tree, giving a little head shake. Now we saw this elephant give a little stomp and a kick and a head shake. And I know that Hunter was wondering, why do elephants stomp their feet? Now, normally they don't stomp too much. Possibly there were some insects that were maybe irritating, maybe some flies or something that was biting the elephant. And that's why it was shaking its feet around like that. But you can see when it kicks its foot into the mud, it's trying to loosen all that soil. You see that lovely mixture of water and mud now? It wants the perfect sort of consistency. So it doesn't want it too watery. It wants it to be just perfect, just to form a nice sort of layer on the elephant's skin. And you can see they almost go a lovely chocolate brown color when they cover themselves with the mud. And shiny. It's like they've put glitter all over their bodies. And that little one getting quite curious now, coming over, possibly to an older sibling, brother or sister. Now I said that baby elephant is probably around 6 months old or so. And I know that Julian was wondering, how much does that baby elephant weigh? Now it probably weighs almost 150 kilograms, so quite a bit, well, just over 300 pounds. But I think that little one hasn't quite worked out how to spray the mud on itself yet. Haven't even seen it made an attempt yet to try and cover itself. But I think we're going to move on from these elephants now. We're going to try and head to go and find you all a leopard. Let's go back across to Byron and see how his search for the Nkuhumas is going.
It's not going very well at the moment. We're having a good look, but haven't seen any sign of these lions. We're moving through some really thick bush, but I assume they're hiding in the shade somewhere. A good afternoon and welcome to the kids from Windsor Oaks Elementary, Mrs. Cameron's class. Lovely to have you with us. Please don't forget, everyone, send us your questions at #SafariLive on Twitter or email us questions@WildEarthTV. Okay, let's have a good look around here. I may have to walk around a little bit soon. Oh, wait. There's a marula over there. So it's quite tricky, everyone, trying to maneuver through this bush. You can see all these trees. Our vehicles do take quite a beating while we're out here. Watch out, Brian. Hang on, what's this under the tree? Is that something there? It is, there we go, there's a lion. Look, everyone. Oh, that's a male. Oh, fantastic. And the rest of the pride. Or at least 2 females just behind him. Oh, there we go. Just as I thought, hiding in the shade. Always wonder sometimes who's more intelligent, us or the animals. And at the moment, it's definitely the animals because they're in the shade and we sitting out in the sun. I wonder where the rest of the pride is, if they are around. This Nkuhuma pride that we see on Djuma, it's a dominant pride around here, and territorial pride, and they've got cubs at the moment. So hopefully I get to show you the cubs. We'll spend some time here and we'll have a good look around, just trying to see if we can't maybe see anything down in this deep drainage line behind them. because I'm sure if there are other lions, they're probably hiding down there. It's nice or much cooler. I'm just trying to have a look with my binoculars. See if I can't see a flick of a tail or an ear or anything to give me a sign that they're down there. So Daniel has asked us a question, and Daniel would like to know, why do lions roar? So Daniel, this big male lion especially will roar basically to mark his territory, to let other lions know that this is his home, or how we call it, his territory, to make sure that they don't come in and try and take that away from him and try and take the females away from him. So this male is part of a coalition called the Birmingham males. I almost forgot. Called the Birmingham males. And these males stay together, and together they're able to keep other males out of their territory. So that roaring will, usually it's a way for them to communicate and find each other, but most of the time it's to mark their territory, to say, this is my home, this is my area, stay out, stay clear. So that is mainly why lions will roar. You can see he's panting very, very heavily there. It's very, very hot. So Julian has asked a question. Julian would like to know, how do lions protect themselves from other predators? So Julian, it's a good question, but what happens is that lions generally don't have predators that will try and hunt them. A predator is an animal. He's just fallen over there. Predator is an animal that will try and hunt another animal. So lions, the way they protect themselves from probably other lions, that would be their biggest threat, is they will do that territorial calling, and if they have to, they will fight one another, and that's biting, scratching. That's how they protect themselves. But they don't have predators as such, so which means they don't have animals that will go and hunt them. But they do have to protect themselves against other lions that might come into their territory. And they've got incredibly sharp teeth. And we might see this male's teeth again when he was panting. You could just see them. You can see those sharp teeth there. And Savannah has asked us a question. Savannah wants to know, why is the lion not running towards us? So Savannah, what happens is we've spent a lot of time in these areas tracking and finding and following these animals, and they are not afraid of us to an extent. There's mutual respect, so we don't try to get too close to make them angry. And we give them a little bit of space so they're comfortable with us being here. And because of that, they won't want to attack us. But we do still have to be careful. And also it's very, very hot. So this male is not too interested in getting up and running at us at the moment. And Little Sierra has asked us, do lions hibernate? No, Sierra, they don't. So these lions will move around throughout the year. They'll always be active. Most of our animals in Africa are active throughout the year. We don't have animals that migrate, except for, or mammals rather, we don't have mammals that migrate, hibernate, except for snakes and reptiles. They will hibernate, but not these animals. So we don't have bears like you do back home in North America. So they would hibernate, but not these lions. So Madison has asked, how do we know if it's a boy or a girl? So Madison, if you have a look at this male over here, he's got a lot of hair around his head and his neck. Can you see that? Very, very thick coat. And that is a male. The females do not have that at all. And unfortunately, we can't see any of the females at the moment. They're just lying down. But I have got a book here, Madison, so let me show you. Let me just find it quickly and I'll show you the difference between the male and the female. There we go. Alright, so have a look here, and there you can see that is the female, or the lioness as we call it. You can see no mane at all, and very different to the male. And then you can see this beautiful big male right next to us, or very close to us. You can see that that mane that he has is much thicker. And the reason for the mane is actually to protect themselves from other lions. So because what happens is when they do fight, they obviously attack the neck. So they've got to have some protection, and that thick mane will hopefully protect them from other lions in case they do get bitten around the neck or the head. He's stretching a little bit there. Abby has asked how sharp their teeth are. So Abby, a lot of their front teeth are very sharp, but also they're just very big and powerful. So they can tear open food that they eat, like a buffalo, which these lions have been very successful for the last week. They've been hunting a lot of buffalo, and they will be able to tear open the buffalo and eat the meat very easily with those sharp teeth. Can see how heavily that lion is panting. He's breathing very heavily, and they do that because they are hot. It helps them cool down, so that's why he's breathing so heavily. You can see his stomach and his back moving up and down. Have a look there. You see that? So Rowan has asked us a question: why do lions fight? So Rowan, the only reason lions would fight, well, there are probably two reasons, 2 or 3. So what happens is lions will fight if a pride bumps into another pride, because they will not be family. And the reason is, then have a look, this male's just standing up. They're just moving further into the shade. But you can see that lioness there now too. So what happens is these lions will fight one another if they bump into each other, because they are coming into their territory, so into their home space, and they don't want that. So that's usually when lions fight, especially males. The other time they might fight is if they're feeding on a kill. And the reason for that is, even though they're a family, the pride of lions would be a family or a group, if they are eating, we call it survival of the fittest. They still want to have more meat than the other one, because if they don't eat, they won't survive. So even within a family, they will fight over their food to make sure they get as much food as possible. So that's probably the 2 main reasons why lions fight. Still don't see the rest of the pride. Some francolins calling in the distance, little ground birds called francolins. A few birds calling, but it is still very hot, so not as active as they are early in the morning or late in the afternoon. We may hear and see a lot more birds later on this afternoon when the temperature starts to cool down. It really is amazing that we're able to get to see and show you these lions, because it's not easy to find. A lot of the time we spend hours tracking and looking for them, and even this afternoon we spent quite a while driving around here looking for these lions. But we saw them this morning and we knew they walked into this area, but we didn't know exactly where they were. So we do have to look very carefully. Wonderful that we can sit with them. We're going to stay around here and see what these lions get up to if they do move, so we'll stay a little bit. But while I do that, let's head back to Taylor and get an update from her.
We're not far from Cheetah Plains now, and we've come across a buffalo herd, which seem to be quite spread out. They're both far on the western side of me, and as well as far on the eastern side, except this little buffalo over here. Now, unfortunately, this buffalo is looking a little bit on the thin side, and that's because of the drought that we are experiencing. So we haven't had enough rain, and the buffaloes unfortunately haven't got enough grass to eat. Now, they normally eat grass, but you can see that this buffalo has decided to eat some Ellies, which is not very good for its tummy, as its digestive system unfortunately cannot really digest the different proteins in the plants, which is not good. But I don't know if you can see the glistening on that buffalo's nose. No, that's a good sign. Even though it's looking a little bit on the thin side, its nose seems to still be quite wet, and that's normally quite a good indication to tell how healthy a buffalo is, in combination with a couple of other signs. When it goes dry, it often means that they're quite sick. But eating too much leaves, unfortunately, can make them sick too. Now, Daniel, looking at this little buffalo over here, you've noticed that it's got big horns, and you're wondering, why do buffalo have such big horns? Now, they're a little bit different from the cows. And this young buffalo over here is still going to get a much bigger set of horns as it grows older. Now, typically the males have got big horns. It almost looks like it's a helmet on their head. And they need that big helmet so that when they fight each other, they can clash heads, so they run into each other and hook their horns. Also, those horns are for protection for the buffalo. So when the lions, which love to eat buffalo, try to come and catch them, they can try and fight them off with their big horns. But this little buffalo better catch up to Mom. I can see her in the far distance. Now, it is tough. Nobody wants to use too much energy in this heat. That's probably why this little one is moving along slowly. It's thin. It's probably not as strong as what it was when there was lots of food around. And of course, in this heat, it's not really great too. They're going to be burning lots and lots of energy. I was hiding very well behind this tree. You can see it just there. Now we can see, can you see that other one looking through the bushes? Look at that, looks like a big male. There we go, that looks like a young male that poked his head around, just looking towards us. Now, Julian, you want to know, since we've been speaking about horns, why do they lock their horns? Sorry, excuse me, I've got hiccups and I'm trying to make them go away. So every now and then I have to hold my breath, but it's not working too well. So, Julian, they don't lock horns like, for instance, there's an antelope called a Kudu. Often Kudu will lock horns, the males will lock their horns and they get stuck. So sometimes the buffalo males, they can hook their horns and they get a little bit stuck, but it's not for long. But the main thing that they do with their horns is that they clash heads. So you see that big part on the top of their head that looks like a hat? That's called a boss, and that's the part of their horns when the males are fighting that they will connect with each other. So they'll run from a distance and then put their heads down and bash them together. It's so loud that it sometimes even sounds like a gunshot if it's two big males having a proper fight. But that's a young boy. He's still got lots and lots of growing to do. But let's go up a little bit further and see what else we've got. Maybe we've got a nice bird to show you. Maybe we've got even some of the smaller antelope, like a common daker, which I'm sure will be around sitting in the shade. But I think that part of our plan today will consist of going to check all the different watering holes, because it is so hot. And hopefully, like I said earlier, we're going to see lots of different animals playing around. Have a look at this giant termite mound. This is a really big one. Look at this. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and very quickly stand next to it. Just want to show you how large it is, and then I'm going to come back to the vehicle. Now, tuck my little cable in. Termite mounds can get rather big, and this termite mound is made by the large fungus growing termites, which maybe we'll be able to see. But I just want you to stand right at the base so you can see exactly how big it is. Do I look tiny compared to this termite mound? I think if I had to climb up and go up to the top, I'd probably have to roll back down. It's so steep. Now, looking at this termite mound, and you think that that top bit is very high, that is only 1/3 of the termite mound. So 2/3, so double that, goes underneath below the surface. And that's where the mound originally started. And as it gets bigger and bigger, they start to build it up like that. Isn't that incredible? Whoops! Almost fell over. My wonky ankles. Alright, let me plug myself back in again and we'll carry on going. There we go. Now, I'm unfortunately going to have to say goodbye to everybody at Windsor Oaks Academy. I hope you had a lovely time with me and David this afternoon. And maybe we'll catch you sometime soon. But let's go back across to Byron.
And we've moved a little bit because that male moved. You can see these lions resting in the shade. They're not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. I still cannot see any sign of the pride, or the rest of the pride rather. Just these few lions here. But I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of the pride is possibly in this area. It is so thick and so dense, we can't move any closer or around here very well. So I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of the pride is possibly just lying down in the shade somewhere. Go ahead for Byron. I can't see the rest of the pride at the moment. I can only see 1 or 2 males and 1 or 2 females. I don't see any sign of the rest of the pride. They're not on the link. They're in the middle of the block between Mvubu and Gallego shortcut, right up against the drainage line. There's a little 2-track that heads down from that link from Buffelshoek cut line, Gallego shortcut, and there's a 2-track that heads south, and we basically south and east of that. It's quite difficult to get through here. So, as you all know, we are in communication with some of the other guides and that in the area, and that's good because we let each other know when we do find stuff, and they let us know if they find anything interesting. So we just update each other often when or all the time when we do find lions or leopards or anything interesting like these big cats. John asked us a question, and John wanted to know, do these lions form coalitions where they're not related? And John, that is true, they do occasionally. I've heard of it happening in certain areas. Usually though, coalition consists of lions where they're born into the same pride. Might not necessarily be the same mother. It could be 2 different females or 3 different females that give birth around the same time, but those cubs are all brought up together within that pride. So they are related because they're probably going to have the same father or the same dominant male that's mated with those females. Those males then form a coalition. Those cubs, when they grow up, form a coalition. They'll stay together. But I have heard in other areas where male lions meet up from different prides and they form coalitions too. I've never seen it myself though, but I have read and I have heard that it does happen. Ben has asked us a question. What bird is that in the background? Ben, I can hear two very clear birds, so I'm not sure which one you're referring to. There is the one currently calling that we can hear is called an orange-breasted bush shrike. That's the orange-breasted bush shrike. That's probably my best bird call. we always try to see if we can mimic some of these birds, and it's not that easy. There was also a cuckoo calling, a Diedrich's cuckoo. And that, the Diedrich's cuckoo sounds like it's going, Diedrich, Diedrich. And that was also calling earlier, so I'm not sure which one you heard. But I hope that answers your question to which bird was calling in the distance. That's the Diedrich's cuckoo. Diedrich. And then the other one that's been calling non-stop is the orange-breasted bush shrike. So I'm hoping it's one of those two that you heard. It's really funny trying to do these bird calls. Leroy has asked us a question. Can the lions regrow their teeth? So Leroy, I've seen lions break teeth, adult lions break teeth before, and no, their teeth don't regrow. I'm not sure. When they are cubs, I think they will possibly have teeth that come through and regrow as youngsters, but adults, I have seen adults with broken teeth and they do not regrow. They'll have that broken tooth or even a missing tooth until they die. These lions actually have a very good spot here, and I'll tell you why. Because we're on the edge of this drainage line. There's quite a deep drainage line down to our left where we are parked at the moment, and you can see that through there. You can see it's very thick, and you can see just down a little bit. I mean, look how dense that bush is, but there's a nice drainage line down there. But what these lions have done is they positioned themselves in a very, very good shady spot, as you can see. And because they're on the edge of this drainage line, they actually have a nice cool breeze coming along here. And because of that cool breeze, they are probably much cooler than we are sitting out in the sun. We have got a little bit of shade. Just wanted to show you something interesting. A little insect. I'm not sure. Can you see it just there on my hand? It's a nice thing about hanging around in the bush like this. You get these little insects crawling on you every now and then. Actually, you know what this is, everybody? This is a baby praying mantis. That is incredible. It is making me twist my arm. Hold on. There, look at that. A little baby praying mantis. Wow, I had to look very, very carefully to see exactly what this is. You can see those front legs. Every now and then there it stands up there. Can you see that? There it goes. Look at that. And look how tiny that is. It just shows you find the strangest little creatures out here when you are spending time in the bush. Even when it's sitting with a pride of lions like this. Oh, that's great. It's Awesome. It started crawling on Brian and Brian passed it to me. I'm going to let this baby praying mantis go. While I do that, Taylor's made it onto Cheetah Plains.
We are safely here on Cheetah Plains and we're making our way straight towards the southern boundary where we last suspected that we saw quarantine. Now, let's see, there's a couple of kudu around here. Now, let's see if anybody's willing to hang around. Probably not, though. There's one. I think she's going to dart in front of the road. Well, this is a lovely female. She still seems to be a little bit young. And there's a couple more adults on the left-hand side of the road who we can just see their rumps for the moment. You can see them feeding in the shade, which is a good thing to do. Actually, it doesn't even look like she's eating at the moment. Oh no, there she's starting to move her head. And there's a nice breeze coming through now. I wish it was a stronger breeze. Now, it's a bit strange at the moment, the weather. I think it's quite humid. David, do you think it feels humid today?
Yes.
It feels very humid. And I know, Jimmy, you were wondering if it is a dry heat or a humid heat. Now, typically in this area, it's just a dry heat. But because we haven't had any proper rains yet, that humidity is building up. The soil is getting hotter and hotter. And hopefully, once we do have our first rains, it will cool down significantly. Hello, girl. It's okay. Having a little stare at us. We go a little bit further forward. And then those first rains will bring that humidity right back down to zero again. Look how she's giving us a stare. Isn't that lovely? Hello, girl. You could almost see down inside her ears. And they're lovely and concave. Very good sort of satellite dishes, that satellite shape to move them around and be able to pick up sound. Well, I'm glad she didn't run away from us. She just moved in to have a little eat and stand in the shade again. You can see those lovely white markings under the eyes. Very similar to what we see on the lions and leopards. And of course, that helps reflect light back into their eyes. But now, of course, unfortunately, the kudu's eyesight is not the same as the predators. It's much, much different, in fact. And they don't really rely on their eyesight as much as they rely on their hearing. Look at this young cow. Have a look at her, how she's watching us. I think this must be her mother. Remember I said that this looked like a young kudu cow? And I wonder if it's perhaps not the offspring of this female from a year ago. She's not massive, but she's not tiny either. And it seems as though she was a little bit nervous and that Mom sort of disappeared. But Mom's keeping a close eye on the other side, but not really too stressed. We saw her feeding, so she's fairly relaxed. Oh, there, I'm hiding away. Oh, there's a couple of more kudu coming down. Let me see if I can go a little bit further forward, and perhaps we'll get a better view. I think we may. Very clever of them to feed in this drainage line. I think once we get past these trees, we can look back into them. There we go. How's that, David? We've got a little view. It's obviously not the perfect view. A couple of leaves and things in the way. But I suppose we can't always have the best view all the time. Now you can see them both looking, they're not really actually looking at us. They're looking at the other female that's walking sort of in front of my vehicle and around it, and I think she's just taking a wide berth and she's going to come and join them down in this drainage. I'm so sorry, I've got hiccups again, and I'm really trying to get them to stop. I'll perhaps have to try drinking water upside down. Look at how elegant they are and how agile they are when it comes to moving, and always watching where they put their feet. You never really hear the kudu making too much noise, even when they are walking through leaf litter. And there's the other cow at the back. So it seems as though it's just the three of them here, a small group. which is probably why as well, why they get a bit on the nervous side when one of them disappears out of sight. Being in such a small group can make them quite vulnerable. Isn't that lovely? Right, let's carry on from these lovely kudu and see what else is out and about on this wonderful day. Now, something that we're definitely going to be following up on. Have one more look at this kudu. That's, sorry David, Wendy, why are you doing these strange things to me today? Sorry, a few of you are hoping to actually go and have a look at that buffalo that we saw stuck in the mud earlier this morning. Well, I didn't think it was stuck. It definitely looked like it could move its legs around. I think it's just very weak, so that's definitely a place that we're heading to. Also, I'm sure we'll find some zebra around there. And look at the two crested francolin that have obviously been disturbed, that are now about to cross the road. I think as this kudu went in to feed, she chased these crested francolins out, who don't seem to be too impressed. But they've got the entire world. There we go. They can go and stand under the shade of another tree. Oh, but first a little bathroom break and a little dig in some elephant dung. Now I'm surprised that, oh, there we go. What have you got? Did you get something delicious? Maybe it was a little termite and some soil. So, sorry, like I said, I'm surprised that they're not feeding in all the fresh animal dung. That's another thing I want to follow up with this heat. And with the dung having so much moisture to it, I could only imagine that there'd be lots of insects around. And if I were a bird, especially a ground-dwelling bird like a francolin or a spurfowl, that's probably the place that I'd be going to look for something to eat. But perhaps they feel a little bit like us today and not wanting to eat so much when it's so hot. There's almost nothing worse than that. She is an absolutely lovely kudu. Look how she keeps coming out. It's the same one that we saw. Hey, beautiful girl. She's very relaxed with us. Relaxed, but still keeping an eye out on the others behind us. All starting to look a little bit plump as well. Now I think that they're going to hopefully have some calves this year. Now this species of kudu that we're looking at is the greater kudu. And I know that Liz was wondering if there's any difference between the two species, or is it the same species with just different names? Excuse me. Now the greater kudu, which is the most common kudu that we see around in Africa, is much larger, much bigger horns, much bigger body size. And I believe that the lesser kudu tends to be a little bit fluffier. If I'm not mistaken, it has been a long time though since I've spoken about lesser kudu, I must admit. I think you can find them in sort of the Kudu region of South Africa, where it gets a little bit colder. And I don't think the lesser kudu have that beautiful big mane on their chest. I'm just trying to remember a photo. Perhaps I'll have to look in my book just to double check. But I think the males do lack that beautiful mane. Now, I don't know if I'll even have it in here. I'll have to just very quickly check. Let me have a look while we watch this beautiful girl. Suppose I need to go to K for kudu here. 243. I don't think I've even seen a lesser kudu before. Let's see if there's anything about it. I actually don't even have anything about lesser kudu in my little mammals book. Maybe even the area that I'm thinking about, that I've heard of them being in there, maybe they were relocated and introduced. There is a lot of breeding sanctuaries down in South Africa and sort of the eastern part of the world down there. A lot of big game breeding projects. So that's possibly where I maybe saw a picture or something from. But I'll have another look at those kudu. Hello, Cassidy. So Cassidy is 5 years old and is wanting to know, why do kudu have those stripes? Now Cassidy, it's very important for these animals to have different colors and markings on them, because it helps them camouflage. And this morning I actually showed everyone how easy it is for a kudu to disappear into the bushes because of its beautiful markings. So these stripes, these are called disruptive markings. And it helps break up the solid color. So all that brown, it helps break it up and helps it easier to blend into the vegetation, to hide away from the lions and the leopards, and maybe even the hyenas. That was something I saw quite a bit of down in the south, was that the hyenas seem to enjoy kudu quite a bit. They hunted them on a regular basis, and it made it quite difficult because the kudu would often alarm call, like they would almost alarm call for a leopard, and they do so for a kudu. And it just proves to you how good of a hunter hyenas actually are, to be able to take down something as nimble as a kudu. There's quite a few little dragonflies and all sorts of things flying around today, but of course they never want to sit still. But maybe when we get to the watering holes, we'll see a couple of butterflies and maybe some more dragonflies, a few wasps. I can only imagine that they'll be down there, perhaps some of them collecting mud or just quenching their thirst. But this little spot that we have found is magical. Of course, with the kudu, some nice shade. I know that David is definitely appreciating it, that we're not staring into the sun today. But let's carry on. Let's try and get to some of these pans. Sorry, girl. I'm going to try and sneak past her. No, she's not having any of it, and she's going to trot on down to the rest of the family. How about, girl? But thank you for the lovely show. Wasn't that stunning? It's not often that we get to spend a lot of time with something like a kudu. Normally it's a quick glimpse. Now, we were chatting about their ears quite a bit, and the kudu obviously have those beautiful concave ears, and I know Aaron from New Zealand was wondering sort of what my opinion is about the kudu's hearing in comparison to the other antelope species. I think kudu must have one of the best senses of hearings. I mean, we predominantly see them in the thicker vegetations along the drainage lines. This is obviously where they like to feed, on those lovely green leaves. And I think when you're living in the thicker vegetation, it is important that hearing is one of your best senses, because there's normally a lot of trees around, a lot of litter on the ground. It's quite easy to pick up the cracking of a branch or the rustling of leaves if something is moving around in there. But eyesight is not necessarily so important, especially in the summer months when everything is so dense. Remember, all these trees out here, they get lots and lots of leaves on them. And sometimes you get thickets that are almost impenetrable, that you couldn't even walk through, that even probably an elephant would find a little bit tricky to navigate into such a thick terrain. And that's when you need the good hearing. So I think anybody in the Tracholaches family, so the spiral horned antelope, so from the bushbuck to the Inyala, that obviously live in similar environments, I think that they would have relatively good hearing as well. But sort of in proportion to the rest of their body, I think that kudu must have some of the largest ears. They almost, especially when they're younger, they look quite funny with their big floppy ears, and they haven't quite grown into themselves yet. David, are we still going straight? We're still going straight. Still learning cheetah plains. Well, I sort of know my way around, but I keep forgetting the name of the roads. But I suppose that's not too important just yet. As long as I know how to get from A to Z, that's all right. Oh, we've got some impala up ahead too. This is great. We're having an antelope day today. We've been having lots of days where we've spent entire mornings or afternoons with the various, sorry, I thought I saw Wendy. Wendy's acting a little bit on the sick side again. Sorry, so what I was saying was that we've spent so much time with the various birds and cats. We never really stop to appreciate all the antelope, and sometimes they're just not around, and it seems as though they've been avoiding me for the past couple of days. And of course the impala always moving into the thicket, but that's okay, at least we can sort of see them through here. And all moving off. Now it doesn't seem like Cheetah Plains got as much rain as I think we did on Djuma. We've already seen the grasses starting to come through again nicely. And perhaps Byron will be able to show you what quarantine looks like, or any of the other open areas. But out here it's still looking a bit dry and miserable. You can see them moving into the thicket, searching underneath the trees, underneath fallen logs, looking for any bits of green grass that are still around or somebody has missed. And they're just carrying on with their day, heads down on the ground, trying to meet as much as possible. Let's carry on a little bit further though and see what's around the next door, or around the next shrub I should say. Now, I was having a good chuckle this morning when I was on my way back from Cheetah Plains. We came across a couple of lizards in the road, but unfortunately they'd never hung around long enough. And now Ben, you were wondering if it's too hot for the reptiles at the moment. I don't think so. I think they'd still be out and around. However, I think at 12 o'clock today though, they probably would have hidden away. But now that it's cooled down significantly from what it was earlier, I think they'd be back out basking in the sun, catching the last rays of light. So that's something that we're looking for too, checking the trees, looking for any tree agamas. I've seen a couple of Gibron's geckos, some large plated lizards, but once again they're so shy, we've almost got to catch them as we're driving along like this. It's like they see the camera and they zoot on back into their holes or behind a piece of bark, and then we just can't get a proper look at them. But we'll keep an eye out. Maybe we will see some today. Especially with all the insects around, everything is going to start to come out. I know that Louise found a scorpion in final control. So that poor scorpion was probably trying to get out of the heat, and well, a nice air-conditioned final control. That would be a spot that I'd probably go to as well. And that's the other thing, and that's what you also have to be quite careful about when you do come on. If you ever get the privilege of coming on a safari one day, is that you have to be careful on these hot days and not to leave your doors and windows open, as nice as it is to try and have a breeze come through. If it is an exceptionally hot day, well, the reptiles are going to want to escape that midday heat, and sometimes, well, underneath your bed could be a very good spot to do so. So we were all chatting about it today, how we're going to have to start keeping our doors closed. Otherwise, one of us might end up with a little snake or something that's not wanted under our beds. So we're going right. Just double checking. We're still making our way around to the southern boundary to see if these leopards are around. And I don't think they would have gone too far. Hopefully they haven't. And we'll just see, because the closest water, we're still going straight here. Now, I was having a look at some of my photos from this morning of Nkanyeni, and I'll tell you why I was having a closer look. I was a little bit like sort of confused, I suppose you could say, but at one point I saw when we first arrived, I saw she had the big gash on her left shoulder. And then I didn't see the mark on her right front paw though, sort of on the outside of her paw. And obviously halfway through the sighting we saw it started oozing with blood. I was a little bit concerned by that. So I went back to the first photos that I took when we first arrived, when Quarantine and Nkanyeni were having a bit of a sort of a standoff, when she was flirting slightly. And I zoomed into one of my photos, and that gash is indeed there on the outside of her paw. But it seemed to be a little bit more closed. Now, I wonder if that was not opened either by her licking on the paw when she was trying to remove those thorns, or maybe one of those thorns that she sort of pulled out of her foot, maybe that long stick hooked and then reopened the wound. Wow, let's have a look. We're at our buffalo, and I don't think that this buffalo is alive, unfortunately. Oh no, it is. I just saw an ear twitch. Now you can see it sitting here It's barely breathing. You can see it taking a couple of breaths, and I did see an ear twitch. But like I said, it's very sad this buffalo is not stuck in the mud. It was able to move around. I think it has even moved from where we saw it this morning, slightly. But the fact that it is just so weak, and of course it's just trying to escape the heat, well, the perfect spot obviously is then to sit in the mud. But I don't think that this buffalo will last too much longer, especially after today's heat. I think that this is going to be the end of this poor buffalo. And we know how sad it is. But once again, it's providing a meal for somebody else. I think we'll leave this buffalo in peace though, and we'll carry on a little bit. Well, we're not too far now from where we last saw those leopards. So I think while I try and find them again, let's go back across to Byron and the Nkuhumas.
So we've just got a view of the other male. He's come out into the open a little bit. He's lying in the sun now. He must be very, very hot. Look how he's panting. I'm sure there are a few flies buzzing around there too. Look at that. So 2 males here this morning. We only got to see 1 male. And there's no sign of the rest of the pride. They've possibly just moved into the drainage line. As I was saying, it's very, very thick in this area. They're possibly lying in the cool shade, or in this cool sand rather, down in this drainage line at the moment. I'm glad we got to find them though, because it was a bit tricky getting in here. They are resting. I think they are going to rest for quite a while still, because it is very hot this afternoon, and so I think they'll probably stay here for quite some time, and probably only leave much later this evening, early evening, as it starts to cool down, and then possibly go and find some water, I'm sure, because it's been so hot. Let's just have a look. The others are just off to my right. You can see them here. That's the other male and the female. Resting very, very comfortably. They're right on the edge of this drainage line, and I'd like to show you something quickly. This tree just in front of that male line. Let's see. Oh, well, those there, and actually all over here, it's got quite dark bark, and that one, and the one off to the right, and then we're actually surrounded by them at the moment. And why I say it's interesting is because all these trees are poisonous. They won't harm the animals in any way. And can you see this one right in the center of your screen at the moment? That's a young one, much lighter, the bark, so it can get confused. So you really have to be careful when you're in these areas. And I'll tell you why. Is when you're in the bush and you need to make a fire, you never use the wood from this tree. This tree is called the Tambweti tree. And as I said, it is very poisonous. So this tree always grows along drainage lines. They do need a lot of water. So they are growing all over here at the moment. So if you do find yourselves in the bush and you need to make a fire, whatever you do, don't collect wood near these drainage lines, because all these little sticks and branches around here are from the Tambweti trees. The reason why I say don't make a fire with it is because these trees are so poisonous. The smoke, even just the smoke from the fire, if you inhale too much of it, can make you violently ill, give you a seriously upset stomach, cause nausea, headaches. And if you happen to cook on that fire, if you happen to cook your meat or anything over that fire, over those coals with that wood, the flavor and the smoke goes into the meat, and you'll get incredibly sick from it. That's how poisonous it is. So we've got to be very, very careful not to use this wood. It's got quite a sweet smell when it does burn. But what I find very interesting is that animals in this area feed off the leaves off these trees. Animals like kudu and black rhino also love to feed on tamboti trees, which is very, very interesting. I have not seen black rhino in this area for quite some time, but they do move through the areas occasionally, and they are quite rare and endangered. But they happily feed on the tamboti leaves, which is interesting. It doesn't affect them. And like I said, the kudu too, they'll also feed on it. So their digestive system is obviously adapted to neutralize the poison from this tree. But we as people do not want to get near this tree and not want to use it to make fires at all. So be very, very careful. And like I say, it is tricky because sometimes the young trees look very pale and light compared to the older trees that are much darker. You've got to be careful. So we call this a tamboti thicket, and it's a perfect area for these lions because it is so dense and they're in perfect shade at the moment. So we got a question from Zalo from Hong Kong, and Zalo wanted to know that the lions, he can see that the lions have very thin hair, and he wants to know how do they protect themselves from sunburn. So Zalo, because they are covered in fur, they don't get sunburnt, and they don't have bare skin that is open to the sun, so they do not suffer from sunburn. Animals that would potentially suffer from sunburn are actually hippo. The hippopotamus has got a very, very sensitive skin, and that's usually why they spend most of the time in the water, especially in summer. And they'll roll around in the water and cover themselves in mud, usually because their skin is so sensitive and they don't want to be caught out in the sun. And they could potentially get a form of sunburn. Not like we get, but they have got sensitive skin, and they do have to be careful in the sun. Another male still out in the open, and beautiful light on his mane there, that golden mane. Mantis has asked us a question about the manes of the lions and the dewlap of the leopard. And I was saying earlier how the manes of these male lions protect them in fights from other males, because usually the necks and the head are attacked when they are fighting, so those thick manes help them. Similar with the leopards have got very thick necks, not quite the same in terms of protection because they don't have long hair. Minas would like to know, what do the cheetah have to protect themselves? So cheetah actually don't have anything around their necks or heads, but also cheetah are very different predators, and I say that because cheetah try and avoid confrontation at all costs. Usually it's more of a show, baring of teeth, and they actually run up and stamp their feet very quickly. It's an interesting display, and they try and almost intimidate the threat rather than attack it. And if cheetah had to come into contact with a lion or leopard or anything, it would get seriously injured. The cheetah, to protect themselves from other animals, from other predators like lion and that, what they have obviously is their speed. They can run away and get away from lions very, very easily and quickly, unless the lions surprise them and ambush them. But they don't have anything around their neck to protect themselves from fighting with one another. And also cheetah don't often get into a territorial dispute like these animals do, like the lions do, where they fight and potentially kill each other. As I was saying, it's usually a show and intimidation, and then they may attack and fight one another, but it's not nearly as aggressive as these big cats over here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave these lions. I'll tell you why, is they're very, very or completely resting at the moment. They're happy in the shade, and I really don't think they're going to move anytime soon, possibly only later this evening. So we're going to carry on driving around and see what else we can find. And while I do that, let's head to Taylor and see what she's got on Cheetah Plains.
Oh no, there's that little stick in the way. Leopard streak. Yeah, yeah, I think it is him.
Oh no, it sounds like Taylor's got some gremlins with her at the moment, so we can't get through to her. That sometimes happens. You can imagine being out here while we are in the middle of the bush. Technically it's quite difficult to always communicate with one another. So as I said, we're leaving these lines now, but it's actually nice that you can see just how we actually found them, and how thick this area is. So you can dodge the branches with us. Watch out. I'm just trying to move through here. Alright, it sounds like Taylor's got rid of the problems on the vehicle, the gremlins. So head to her, she's got a leopard to show you.
Now, we're back at the termite mound where we suspected that quarantine was. We did see a vehicle from Mala parked here this morning. Now, I'm not sure if anybody can see anything just yet. Can you see anything? Ah, look who we've got still sitting on the termite mound. Mr. Quarantine himself. Now, he hasn't moved much at all. He's moved from the right-hand side of the mound to the left. He has really just been following the shade today, and I don't blame him after being chased around by Nkanyeni this morning, but she is nowhere to be seen. So perhaps she was happy with him as he moved out of her territory. And hopefully went back to find her cubs again. Now, he's giving a couple of yawns. Let's see if he grooms himself and perhaps if he's going to wake up. There we go. That's what we like to see. But now, Mr. Quarantine, we don't want you to go further south. We're actually viewing him from quite a distance. He's not on our traverse anymore. So let's hope that he does come back across the side to have a drink at one of those pans on the big open plains. Can we try and zoom into his eye, on his left eye? Has he got a cut under his eye? Is that as far as we can go? Like I said, we're far away. I'm trying to work out if it's just a spot pattern or if he's perhaps got a gash under his face. Can you see that under his left eye? If you're looking at the screen, it'll be on the right. No, I think it's just those beautiful markings. Sorry, that for a moment looked like a gash. Now it seems as he's come out unscathed, and it looked like Nkanyeni got a little bit of a hiding with her gashes. And of course that makes sense because Quarantine was well more than double her size from what we saw today. And he's really turning out to be a beautiful leopard. Remember, in the beginning this morning, we almost had our doubts as to who he was. Let's see if he comes back. Don't go further into Mala. Please don't, big boy. Oh, he's just laying down again. Let me go forward. So, Darby, there's another gap. I don't know what's that like. Must I go forward? Oh, more? Oh no. Okay, we're just trying to work it out how we're going to do this. We're going to go back. And we're going to go slowly just until David says he's got a good view. Now this is a little bit more. No. I think we're going to have to get him through there, hey? Now, I know that this is not the greatest view. Of course, we've got lots of trees and leaves and things covering his face. But perhaps he'll get on moving again. He's moved once. He seems to be itching towards the end of the shade. Perhaps he's just working himself out to face the heat of the day. But he looks relatively well fed. He doesn't look particularly thin, and from what I understand, he seems like he's quite a successful boy. But he is looking lovely. I think this is definitely going to be a leopard to watch out for in the next couple of years. I mean, if he's sort of this size at 4 years old, he obviously seems to sort of slim down when he stands up. He's not as big and as stocky as Tingana just yet, or Mvula. But I'm very impressed that he is almost 4 years old, and he looks like this already. And doesn't seem to be too bothered by the flies like we saw Tingana was yesterday afternoon. He was almost having a complete meltdown and swatting the flies, trying to bite them. Whereas Quarantine seems to be a little bit more relaxed. Just the occasional sort of tail swat. He shakes his head and just tries to bite the flies.
No, I think if we go back.
Do you think we'll go? So David said he thinks if we can go back a little bit more, we might even get a better view. But let's try this again. Well, we'll see. We may have to push Wendy backwards. Right, let's try this again. That good? Oh, there we go. Well done, David. That's an even better view. But he's quite far from us. He's probably about 70, maybe 80 meters away. Like I said, he's right at the edge of the shade now. He's moved off that termite mound. And now we can only just sit patiently and see what he does next. Oh, and I was trying to have a look at what caterpillar it was that I found today, that bright green one, so thank you for sending all those screenshots through. I had a look, but it was quite tricky. I don't have a butterfly and moth book. I've ordered one and I'm just waiting for it to be delivered. And I'm not sure, still uncertain as to what it could be. I looked at the sorrels, but they don't really occur up in this area, but their caterpillar looked very much like that. It could be one of the Acria butterflies, which is a very large family, and they've got a variety of different ones, so I still have to get back to you on our little green friend. Now, it would help if we found them on whichever plant that they would be feeding on. That would help immensely. But I shall let you know as soon as I figure out who it is. Perhaps I will have to borrow Steph's book. Now he's gone flat. Now, you can see he seems to have gone back to sleep for a little bit. And Donna, you're wondering if we have any updates on Sindile. So I haven't seen Sindile yet, but I know that he has had his collar removed, and how exciting is that? Remember, we said we were going to do that as soon as it was possible, and they have indeed taken it off. And I believe he was seen around in Koro and on Cheetah Plains very briefly, I think a few weeks ago, maybe a week or so ago. But I haven't seen him for a very long time. I think the last time I saw Sindile was down in the south, in the southern sands, very far from home. But I think he's up and moving around in the area somewhere, and I'm sure he will probably pop around, hopefully soon. It would also be quite nice to see how big he's getting. You can see the wind is now starting to pick up again. There's a bit of a haze in the sky, which is good for us. Hopefully there will be a bit of cloud build up a little bit later. Now I'm very thankful for this breeze now. Beautiful big sleepy leopard. And we probably will just spend a bit of time with quarantine and see if he does decide to wake up. Hopefully the flies bother him enough that he does start moving again. And like I said, from here, the closest watering hole is actually on Cheetah Plains side, so hopefully he will decide to come back across here. You can see him breathing quite quickly though, trying to cool himself down. It's really beautiful out here this afternoon. Doesn't seem to be too much around though. I'm just sort of scanning the area as quarantine sleeps. I can't even see Impala out on the plains. I don't even see Norman the Gnu just yet. Perhaps we'll come across some more buffalo in the watering holes cooling off. But I think what we'll do is we'll sit here for a couple more minutes, and then I'd like to go and do a little loop and just check the watering holes just to see if there's perhaps anything in them or anything coming down to drink, and then we will come back to Mr. Quarantine. Because at the moment it doesn't look like he's going anywhere. Now, something that we were talking about this morning is the various identifying features of the leopards. Actually, we've been chatting about it now for quite some time. And thank you, Debbie. And I know someone else mentioned it this morning as well, on that beautiful landing strip that you are able to identify Quarantine with on the back of his rump. Let's see if we can get another view. And I think that that's quite unique. Remember, I sort of described him as a jaguar. There you can see, if you follow the top of his tail, and you follow it all the way towards the vertebrae on his back, you can see those sort of row of spots that have almost looks like they're about to join together. And I think that that is quite unique and it's quite lovely. Now, Kathy from Tennessee, you've asked a wonderful question this afternoon. You want to know, because Quarantine is related to Karula and a couple of other leopards in the area, will there be other leopards that will try to push him out, or is there not really a worry about inbreeding? Remember now, inbreeding is common with the cats. It is normal for a couple of generations. He's looking up, he's listening to the other vehicle that's coming on around. And it's all right. I think for the moment, I mean, it's Quarantine, and then of course his older brother Shavambalana that seem to be in this area. Sindile is a little bit too young, so he's going to have to live in and amongst the various females and other males' territories, I think, before he sort of finds himself. And I don't think Tingana and Mvula really come this far, so for the moment he'll be all right. I think the only competition he's going to really have is against his brother, who seems to be in the area occasionally too. But for now, he's fine. And it won't be too long before maybe he expands his territory slightly and then maybe he even decides to move out. Maybe he moves further south, maybe he moves further north or east. His future is uncertain. He's still a young, a beautiful leopard. But let's go back across to Byron, who has got a zebra, or even maybe a group of zebra, I'm not sure.
It is indeed a group of zebra, Taylor. Have a look, there's one there, and then a few off to the back. They are beautiful animals. They're enjoying all this green grass which has just started to shoot out. Within the last week we've had some good rain not too long ago, about 4 days ago, and already we're starting to see signs of some green foliage coming through and green grass. And these zebra being grazers, so they mainly feed on grass, they don't feed off leaves of trees unless they are really, really desperate. So they're looking for all the good grass, and that's what they found around here. Some flies bothering that one. Look at the tail. The tail's constantly moving backwards and forwards, chasing flies away. And it's interesting, sometimes if you're lucky, you'll see zebra standing head to tail next to one another. And they often do that to keep the flies out of each other's faces. They'll swish their tails from side to side, chase the flies away. Look at those beautiful stripes, black and white. And if you look closely, this is very interesting. This is known as the Burchell zebra or the plains zebra. And you can note, do you notice that little light brown shadow in the middle of the stripes? So that is quite distinct of the Burchell zebra. They've got the black and white and then this little brown shadow almost in between the two stripes. Some of the other species like the Cape Mountain zebra, which we do not get in this area, but they do occur in other parts of southern Africa, mainly down in the southeastern part of South Africa, and their stripes are a lot closer together and completely black and white. There's no shadow between the stripes. So it's only the Burchell zebra that have got this. Aren't they beautiful? It's a really peaceful afternoon, very quiet, few birds calling in the distance, but it's been very, very warm, very hot, so animals are just kind of taking it easy, I guess. They're looking for food. Possibly, if most of them have probably headed to the waterhole already today. A lot of people think that animals only drink either in the morning or either in the late afternoon, but it's not the case. They'll drink throughout the day. Whenever they're thirsty, animals will go and drink. And at the moment, because of that rain that we had fairly recently, there's some lovely little mud wallows and pools around. We'll see if we can find some for you. But then these animals are able to then walk past and get a drink, as opposed to having to find the big dams or big permanent water holes all the time. That little one running down there, and you can see this is a bit of a drainage line that we are in at the moment, so it's nice and cool. So Samantha has asked, why are zebras black and white? I can't see how these colors help for camouflage. So Samantha, it's a good point. It doesn't really help for camouflage, but I must admit, when the zebra are in the dense thickets, it does make it difficult to spot them. One of the main theories behind the zebra's black and white stripes, and I say theory because I don't know if it's really possible to 100% prove these theories, but one of the main theories, and the one that I think is the most accurate, is that when these zebra are being hunted by lions, for example, with a herd of zebra moving away from a pride of lions, when they're running, these stripes actually blend in. So when they're very close together, it makes it difficult for the lions to identify and to separate an individual from the group. So it might blend in and cause a dazzle, and that's often why they're called a dazzle of zebra. And that movement and all those stripes mixing and passing one another, it makes it difficult to see where one zebra starts and another one ends. So I think that's a very good theory behind the zebra's black and white stripes. Another theory was that it helps regulate the temperature, but I don't think that's very accurate at all. I think the other one is probably the more plausible. And And if you do see a group of zebra running and moving together, you'll see it is actually difficult to see all the different zebra within a herd. And Sharon from Illinois has asked us an interesting question. I'm going to try and move forward a little bit for you, just to get another look at the zebra. Hold on. There we go. Now Sharon from Illinois has asked us, why do the zebra have that black spot on the inside of their legs? And you can actually see it there on the front inner side of the leg. And now, Sharon, I don't know. I have no idea what that is for. So if any of our viewers have got an idea, I don't think it's a gland. You know, some of these animals, like a lot of the antelope species, have got these glands around their feet and legs, and that is to scent mark territory. I don't think that's the case with the zebra. I could be mistaken, but I don't think so. But I'm not sure what that little black spot is for, unless it's just a marking on the zebra for some reason. I really have no idea. So if any of our viewers do have an idea or do have a theory, please let us know. Hashtag Safari Live, send in your comments or questions at WildEarthTV, and maybe you can shed some light on it. Oh, I just had a little butterfly fly over us. It's very difficult to sometimes show you all of these little things because it does happen very quickly. It looked like a monarch butterfly that just flew past us. Let us carry on. I'm going to head towards Buffelshoek Dam. With it being so hot, I'm hoping that we get some animals coming down to drink or just in that general vicinity. I'm going to continue along this main road and head towards the dam. While I do that, let's get an update from Taylor.